Yusuf's unseen torment, a battle between worlds. This is the story of Yusuf, a gentle 10-year-old boy from the ancient city of Damascus, whose bright spirit and innocent heart became the focal point of a terrifying battle. His tale, Yusuf's unseen torment, is not one of fantasy, but of a chilling reality that exists just beyond our sight, a world of beings forged from smokeless fire. It explores the collision of two worlds, the seen and the unseen, and the incredible power of faith in the face of a force that sought to consume a young boy's soul. It is a journey into the heart of fear, a testament to a father's love, and a profound lesson on the spiritual fortresses we must all build to protect ourselves. And he created the jinn from a smokeless flame of fire. The Qur'an, Surah Ar-Rahman 55:15. Thoughtful. Have you ever felt a sudden, inexplicable chill in a warm room or heard a whisper on the wind that seemed to call your name? The traditions of Islam confirm that our world is shared. Parallel to us exists a creation known as the jinn. They are not ghosts of the dead or mythical sprites. They are intelligent, accountable beings with free will, living out their own lives, unseen by our eyes. But what happens when the veil between these worlds thins? What happens when one of them takes notice of us? In a historic courtyard home in Damascus, where the air smelled of jasmine and baked bread, such a thinning was about to occur. Within these walls lived Yusuf, his father Omar, and his mother Amina. Theirs was a home of spiritual light, or nur, where the rhythms of life were dictated by the 5 daily prayers. It was this very light that attracted Zarun. Zarun was a jinn of great age and power, but his long existence had been a solitary one. He was a wanderer, an observer of mankind's fleeting generations, his essence a swirling vortex of shadow and ember. He was not one of the shayateen, the devils committed to evil, but he was lost, plagued by a spiritual emptiness that the light of Yusuf's home seemed to promise it could fill. He watched the family's love, their community, their devotion to a God he knew of, but had never truly submitted to, and a dangerous envy took root in his heart. He focused on Yusuf. In the boy's untainted spirit, Zarun saw a purity he had long since lost. A desperate, misguided plan formed in his timeless mind. If he could just get closer, if he could somehow attach himself to the boy, perhaps he could bask in that spiritual warmth and quell his eternal loneliness. His initial intent was not malicious.
The first contact was almost imperceptible. As Yusuf sketched at his desk one evening, his pencil rolled to the edge and dropped, as if nudged by an unseen finger. A pocket of intense cold hung in the air, making the boy shiver. Yusuf, innocent and unafraid, simply picked up his pencil. He could not see the immense shadowy form of Zarun coalescing in the corner, watching him with an intensity that burned like a cold fire. The jinn had crossed a threshold, not just into a room, but into a life. And for Zarun, feeling the boy's shiver, a reaction to his presence, was a twisted form of connection. It was intoxicating, and he immediately craved more. The whispers in the walls. That night, the whispers began. They slithered into the edges of Yusuf's dreams, strange, sibilant words he could not understand. Soon, the subtle signs gave way to a terrifying campaign. Doors would slam in windowless corridors, cherished items would vanish only to reappear in impossible places. A dreadful scratching sound would erupt from within the walls at night, ceasing the very instant Omar would call out the name of Allah. Yusuf began to change. His bright eyes became clouded with a deep, weary dread. He grew withdrawn and paranoid, often seen arguing with an empty space, his face a mask of terror and confusion. The whispers had followed him into his waking hours, insidious murmurs that only he could hear, tempting him with promises of power one moment and threatening his family the next. His very soul was becoming a battlefield. Amina, his mother, saw the truth with the clarity of a mother's intuition. Her denial shattered one afternoon when she walked into Yusuf's room to find every single one of his toys and books hovering a foot off the ground in a vortex of silent chaos before crashing violently to the floor. This was no childish fantasy. This was an invasion. Omar, a man of logic and practicality, struggled to accept it, but his skepticism crumbled when Yusuf, in a strange, detached voice, began speaking of Omar's deceased grandfather, revealing details of his life that no one but Omar could have known. A cold terror seized him. His son was no longer entirely his own. The family turned to their faith, their only true shield. Amina began to play a recording of the Qur'an's second chapter, Surah Al-Baqarah, throughout the house, remembering the words of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Indeed, Satan does not enter the house in which Surah Al-Baqarah is recited. Jami at-Tirmidhi, 2877.
The effect was instantaneous and violent. An inhuman shriek of pure rage erupted from Yusuf's room, a sound filled with ancient agony. A lamp was hurled against the wall, exploding into shards. Yusuf collapsed, screaming and clutching his ears. The sacred verses a source of physical torment. The Jinn, Zarun, was fighting back, his whispers turning to roars inside the boy's mind, commanding him to destroy the source of the sound. The divine words were like a searing light, exposing the Jinn's dark attachment and driving it into a cornered, desperate fury. A fortress of faith. Omar knew that a recording was not enough. The situation demanded a direct confrontation of faith. He sought the counsel of a local imam, a pious elder known for his wisdom in matters of Ruqyah, the Islamic practice of healing through the recitation of the Qur'an. The imam listened patiently, his brow furrowed with concern. Calmly, "The word of Allah is the ultimate cure," he explained, his voice calm and firm. Thoughtful, but the vessel that carries it must be pure in its intention and its trust in Him alone. The recitation must come from a believing heart, not just from a speaker. He confirmed that the signs pointed to jinn possession, a trial that had befallen believers throughout history. He armed Omar not with amulets or charms, but with knowledge and the powerful weapon of specific Qur'anic verses. Firmly, "You must perform the Ruqyah yourself as a father," the imam instructed. "Place your hand on your son, focus your heart entirely on Allah, and recite, 'Your faith is His shield.'" He specified the essential verses, Surah Al-Fatiha, Ayat Al-Kursi, the verse of the throne, and the final 3 chapters of the Qur'an, Al-Ikhlas, Al-Falaq, and An-Nas. "And we send down of the Qur'an that which is healing and mercy for the believers," the imam quoted, citing Surah Al-Isra 1782. Omar felt a tremor of fear. Could he do this? Was his faith strong enough to stand against a being of fire and shadow? The thought of facing this entity, of seeing it manifest through his own son, was terrifying. But the sight of Yusuf's hollowed eyes and the sound of his tormented cries galvanized him. A father's love transformed his fear into a warrior's resolve. Determined, he would be the vessel, he would be the shield. His initial attempts brought a fierce backlash. Each time he recited over Yusuf, the boy would thrash and scream, and the paranormal activity in the house would intensify. It felt like they were losing ground. The jinn was not weakening, it was adapting, becoming more cunning, its whispers growing more personal and cruel, exploiting Omar's deepest fears about failing as a father.
The betrayal and the battle. Just as the family was steeling themselves for a prolonged spiritual struggle, a well-meaning but frightened relative intervened. Fearing the family was not doing enough, she secretly consulted a local healer, a man known to deal with the unseen using forbidden methods. One evening, this man came to their home under the guise of offering prayers. He was charismatic and his words were soothing, but Omar felt a deep unease in his presence. The man lit a strange incense, muttered incantations, and left a small, folded paper talisman hidden beneath Yusuf's bed. He had not performed a healing. He had performed sihr, sorcery. He had not sought help from Allah, but had made a pact with other, more malevolent jinn to supposedly exorcise the first one. The result was catastrophic. That night, the atmosphere in the house shifted from being haunted to being malevolent. The presence was no longer just the tormented Zarun. It was something colder, darker, and infinitely more sinister. Zarun, who was already bound to Yusuf by his own obsession, was now trapped and empowered by the sorcerer's ritual. The Sihr acted like chains, binding him to the boy while also inviting a demonic entity to oversee the torment. Yusuf's condition plummeted. He was now racked with fevers, and dark, bruise-like marks would appear on his skin. The whispers were replaced by a constant, mocking laughter that seemed to echo from the walls themselves. Omar was devastated. Their situation had become infinitely more complex and dangerous. They were now fighting not just one lost jinn, but a calculated act of sorcery and the evil it had summoned. Upon discovering the talisman, Omar felt a surge of cold fury. He remembered the Imam's grave warning. Whoever goes to a soothsayer and believes what he says has disbelieved in what was revealed to Muhammad, Musnad Ahmad. He carefully destroyed the talisman, as the Imam had instructed for such objects, by unwrapping it and burning it while reciting verses of protection, severing the physical link of the sorcery. But the spiritual chains were still in place. The heroic journey had become a desperate fight for survival, and Omar knew the final confrontation had to happen now, or he would lose his son forever. The mercy in the verses. That evening, the family gathered for a final, desperate stand. The air was suffocatingly heavy. Omar, his heart filled with a terrifying mix of dread and absolute reliance on God, tawakkul, placed his hand on Yusuf's feverish head. Amina sat across the room, her tears flowing as she supplicated to Allah for a miracle. Omar began to recite. His voice, thick with emotion, grew stronger with each sacred syllable. He recited the verses of Ruqyah to heal, and he added the verses known to break sorcery. As the powerful words of Ayat al-Kursi filled the room, describing the absolute, unassailable power of the Creator, Yusuf's body went rigid. A voice, layered and distorted, erupted from him. The enraged cry of Zarun twisted with the venom of the new evil. "The pact is made. You cannot break it. He is ours." Omar did not falter. He did not engage. His dialogue was with Allah alone. He continued his recitation, his heart a blazing furnace of faith. He recited the verses from Surah Al-Araf,
that Moses, used against Pharaoh's magicians. He poured every ounce of his belief into the words, envisioning them as swords of light, hacking away at the chains of sorcery. The battle raged. The room plunged into an unnatural cold, and the shadows in the corners seemed to deepen and writhe. Through Yusuf, the entity mocked him, taunted him, tempted him to stop. But then, a shift occurred. As Omar recited the verses of Surah Taha, where Allah speaks of His mercy, a new sound emerged from Yusuf. It was a cry not of rage but of pure agony. It was the voice of Zaroon, the original jinn.
It burns! The chains! Help me! I am trapped! I only wanted the light!
In that moment of clarity, Omar understood. Zaroon was a victim of the sorcery, as much as Yusuf was. Moved by a sudden, profound pity, Omar altered his intention. He continued the Ruqyah to destroy the Sihr, but his heart now also directed a plea to Zaroon. He invited him to the path of salvation. Turn to your Creator with conviction. He is the only one who can break these chains. Submit to Him, and you too can be free. He then recited the opening of Surah Al-Jinn. Say, O Muhammad, it has been revealed to me that a group of the jinn listened and said, Indeed, we have heard an amazing Qur'an. It guides to the right course, and we have believed in it. And we will never associate with our Lord. And Yusuf's eyes fluttered open. They were clear, calm, and entirely his own. He looked at his father, a single tear tracing a path through the dust on his cheek. Baba? I was so scared. Zaroon, the jinn, was gone. Freed from the sorcerer's chains and touched by a mercy he never knew existed, he had relinquished his hold and accepted the call to Islam, departing their world forever to find his own path among the believers of his kind. The echoes of the unseen. In the aftermath, peace returned to the house in Damascus, but it was a new kind of peace, one born of profound gratitude and a deep understanding of the unseen world. Yusuf's traumatic memories faded, but the lessons were forever etched into the hearts of his family. They learned that the greatest darkness is not from external forces, but from straying from the straight path and seeking help from forbidden sources. Yusuf's story serves as a timeless reminder for us all. The world of the jinn is real, and the dangers of sorcery are potent, but the power of Allah is absolute. Protection lies not in charms or soothsayers, but in building a daily fortress of faith through the prescribed remembrances. Reciting Ayat al-Kursi after every prayer, the final 3 surahs in the morning and evening, and making the Qur'an a living presence in our homes and hearts. This ordeal teaches us that in a world filled with visible and invisible challenges, our armor is our faith, our weapon is the Qur'an, and our ultimate protector is Allah. Let this story be a beacon, guiding us to fortify our souls, so that we may navigate the shadows of this life, always moving towards His divine and eternal light.